Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson. One of the things that people are very concerned about these days is their brain health, Alzheimer's, dementia. I mean, it's going through the roof. And there are ways and things that you can do to rebuild your brain. I have probably seen at least 20 different products on brain memory, what have you. I mean, we read about turmeric and all these things now. All that stuff is well and good. I agree with those things. There are some foundational things that are very, very important for our brain's health. And this being the month of May in 2022, this is Brain Health Month for us. And so we're going to unpack some things that the brain can do and it can accomplish and how plastic it really, really is. And if that's a new word for you associated with the brain called plasticity, that is its ability to adapt and heal and overcome and do things. Now, the younger a person is, the more plastic the brain is. But I can tell you that when I was in chiropractic school back in 1993, 94, 95, they actually told us back then that the brain does not heal. And within a few short years being out of school, that all has overturned. That the brain actually produces new cells, can heal, can really remodel and rebuild itself. And so some of you out there are thinking that, well, my brain is it's done deal. That's not true. It can repair. And again, I'm pleasantly surprised with my older crowd when I do some nutrition with them that's very specific for the brain, that all of a sudden they're just like, my brain is way better within just a few days of what you gave me. And I say I'm pleasantly surprised because we think that as we get older, well, things don't heal as fast as they could or should. And we do realize that does happen. But with the brain, it seems to be pretty fast, even in the elderly. And so I've probably had at least a dozen concussions in my office of young people, mostly boys, football, the rugby, just brutal sport, and bicycle riding, falls out of windows, off of roofs, they'll get concussions. And I had an elderly gal in her 80s that had fallen and hit her head and her memory was not doing well and she didn't like what was happening. I've had some older gentlemen that have been football players when they were young and now that they're in their 60s, they're really concerned about their memory. And I would give them brain support, basically brain tissue, if you will, from a healthy animal. And within just 2 or 3 days, I tell them, I said, I'm expecting within 3 days for you to notice a difference. And they're like, really? I said, yes, really. And I can remember one person that I had given this brain support to, and I'm like, you're kidding. You haven't noticed anything? I said, double it. And then he had to triple it. And finally, he started noticing results. I was like, wow, your brain has really gone through some trauma. And, come to find out, he's had tons of head injuries. He played football 45 years ago when things weren't as good as they are now, at least protection-wise. Not that they're great now, but at least, he has this history. And for myself, I'll usually tell people a little bit about my own history, but my first concussion when I was 9. And I've had 11 others since then. And so I've had a dozen concussions in my life. I've had a number of injuries and accidents that are whiplash. And every time that you're in a whiplash accident, you're literally throwing your brain around, but your spinal cord that is covered by a very tough membrane called the meninges is literally trying to pull your brain through the bottom of your skull. And so that's why you'll have some memory deficits. I remember after my last motor vehicle accident that was like 20 years ago, it was difficulty swallowing for about 6 months. I'd wake up every day with a sore throat. But my brain, after about 8-9 years, I really started having trouble remembering things, trying to produce words that were on the tip of my tongue. I was really getting concerned. I'm like, am I just going to develop early stage Alzheimer? I mean, this was a thought that was going through my head. Am I developing Parkinson's? What the heck's going on? And I went to one of my mentors because it was too close to me. Like you can't see your own stuff. One of my friends just said, well, yeah, your own crap smells and you're used to it. You can't smell it because you're used to it. I thought that's funny, of course. And so I went to him and he's like, he tells me brain support and he tells me this product. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh yes. And so he tests me and he's like, at least 3 morning, 3 night. In 2 days, I was like, oh my gosh. It was like all the lights were turned on upstairs and the windows were open and everything was great and I could remember, I could think. It was unbelievable. And so I began to work on my brain for about 9 to 12 months. But I noticed after about 4 to 6 months, it was really, really good, but I kept working on it. Even today, on occasion, I will still take brain support just as dripping it in the system, so to speak. So those of you out there that have had that kind of stuff, yes, you can do things like turmeric, you can do things like CBD, you can do things like echinacea, you can do things like bacopa. These are all great herbs, but really getting the brain at its core. And I could tell you the product, but my concern is that you'll go run out and take the product and not understand how to work with the other aspects of it. And so if you do have like, hey, I really want to know about that. Well, I know that you probably do, but you do need some understanding of what to do with that kind of a product that is going to literally tell your brain to repair, because there's things that go with it. And we need to be able to figure out what else you've got going on and why you're having what you're having. It's not just something you just go run out and do, even though it probably wouldn't bother you too much, but you can be quite sick from it because of a cleanse effect. And it's going to do things that you need to feed the brain other nutrients. And let's say that you've got all these other things in your environment that you're doing that you don't realize that's harming your brain, and you're just doing this one product. While that is okay, it's probably not ideal. And so if you're going to do one thing for your brain, you really do need to understand the other things about your brain too. So what are those other things? Well, the brain itself it's really hard on it to do high sugar. Sugar burns up in the brain into what they call AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And those advanced glycation end products is like ash. And that ash just settles over all of the brain tissue and starts to create almost this Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's type scenario. And sugar feeds all infections. So if you've had injury after injury on your brain, then you likely have some vertigo going on and you need to do some infection work on your brain too. And those are other products, and we specifically test those. We don't just run out willy-nilly and do infection fighting products. But suffice to say that once we start fixing the infection in the brain and then begin to detoxify the brain by cleaning up diet, doing a lot less sugar, a lot less bread, a lot less pasta, and now eating better proteins, better fats, for sure better fats, and good vegetables, and we begin to clean out the ash and the debris out of the brain, we now have a brain that can actually heal and do some things in a much, much better way. So there's many things I'll use. I'll use things like OPCs for cleaning out some of the ash. I'll use a couple of herbs like ginkgo. I'll use turmeric as well. Bacopa. These are all great herbs to do. Most herbal products are very difficult to get in good form. They're oftentimes just loose herb in a capsule and they're not very potent. And you're not going to find a lot of help with them. Turmeric is a classic example of running out and buying any turmeric product and thinking it's going to work for you. But when we test turmeric levels in the blood, meaning they're curcuminoids, and we look at taking 400 milligrams of turmeric, and then we test the blood, and the blood's like barely elevated. But then when you take a turmeric product where somebody knows what they're doing and they've combined it with a fat, like what I use with MediHerb, then all of a sudden I'll get a turmeric product that we see high levels of curcuminoids in the blood. And now are we getting those curcuminoids to the brain? Are we able to deliver those things? Do you have enough good fats and delivery systems within your brain to get them in there? Do you have a lot of heavy metal toxicity in your brain from your childhood, where you lived, industry in your area, the soil or the pipes in your house or the chemicals that were around you all the time? Do you have a lot of heavy metal toxicity in your body? Do you need to gently, effortlessly clean that out slowly over time as to not damage brain tissue, but also get it out into your gut and out of your body so that it doesn't cause you problems? Do you have deficiencies in trace minerals that the brain so vastly needs so that it feels better and it can do the job that it needs to do? Do you have enough B vitamins in the right quantities and not a synthetic B that's garbage from a health food store, but real B vitamins that come from things like nutritional yeast or liver or blackstrap molasses or egg yolks or something like that? Are you getting those things in your diet in high quantities so that you can begin to help this brain actually begin to repair? These are all ideas that I hand you because this is what it takes to repair a brain and do it very well. And so I encourage you out there, are you doing chiropractic, which the upper back is all blood flow to the head and neck? Do you have misalignments in your upper neck that's shutting down blood flow to your brain? You got all these aspects that comes to really that we put together in a nice, well-rounded plan when it comes to fixing something like a brain. And then what we're going to do later in this month is I'm going to go through a couple of podcasts that talk about how do we start cleaning out our brain of the thinking things that shouldn't be there. How do I clean my thinking processes? How do I clean the beliefs out of my head that I know that are limiting me? How do I clean those things that may be stopping me from healing? Because all that can too. So it's not just nutrition. It's not just chiropractic. It's not just cleaning out your head. There's a lot of things that go into that aspect of cleaning any organ in the body, but we're just focused on brain today. So I hope that gives you a nice, well-rounded idea of what does it take to clean a brain out? What does it take to heal a brain? And maybe all those things like, wow, he kind of sounds like he knows what he's doing with a brain. Well, it's taken some time, but we've had lots of clients go through this process and do very, very well and be very happy that they can think more clearly and actually feel better. So if that's something you would like for yourself, then definitely get a hold of me. We're available. Shoot me an email, phone, however you want to contact me. It's easy enough to do that. And I'd love to help you with your problems or your loved one's problems. So until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.